Welcome to Unschool, where we undoctrinate you from public school nonsense.
Crime is soaring in Democrat run cities, and the media is complicit in pretending like it's not happening. Okay? Says Jim Jordan knows this is unsustainable. Right here from the NRA website, in 2021, 37% of police departments stopped reporting crime data to the FBI, including large departments for Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York. And for other jurisdictions like Baltimore and Nashville, crimes are being underreported and undercounted. This is intentional, guys. This is intentional. They don't want it to look like they dramatically increased the crime rates, starting with the so-called summer of love, more like the summer of riots and dramatically increased violence. So it started increasing from 2020 to 2021 to this day, and it hasn't abated. Now we have tons of people coming into the country illegally. This leaves a large gap. By 2021, the real crime data collected by the FBI represents only 63% of police departments, overseeing just 65% of the population. When compared to pre-21 data, the result is a questionable decline in crime. So they're claiming there's been a decline, but they're just not reporting it. Like that, let that stew for a minute. That violence is actually increasing in many of these cities, right? Chicago and New York and LA, San Francisco, these are all places with high rates of crime who will attempt to hide it because they don't want anyone to know that Democrats make really bad mayors. Democrats make really bad governors. They just don't know how to deal with real life. They can only make false promises. So it says here violent crime rates in the United States declined substantially following the 90s, but Democratic leadership in many key cities seems hell-bent on reversing this trend. Trends in recent years are very disturbing since they indicate that crime is rising and that leadership in many of these violent cities has been encouraging this rise in crime. Movements such as BLM and Defund the Police have added fuel to the fire and made it much more difficult for law enforcement to preserve order in these cities. To make matters worse, court systems in many of these cities have done a poor job of enforcing laws and prosecuting violent criminals. They haven't just done a poor job, right? They're doing it intentionally. They're intentionally trying to keep people from knowing the truth. They're intentionally letting out criminals. That was extremely common thing during COVID. Quite interesting, isn't it? They have this virus come along, and for some reason, that relates to the Democrat interest in letting criminals out of prison early, and then consequently, violence increased in cities across America, and they're trying to pretend like that's not what happened. It definitely is what happened, and people, are not realizing it to the level they should. While the recent rise in violent crime in recent years should be a wake-up call to political leaders, many leaders in Democrat-run cities have ignored these trends and continue to pursue irrational and destructive policies. Democrat-run cities are not safe. Jim Jordan recently posted about Army veteran Hassan Correa. I probably said that wrong, sorry. Who was brutally murdered in New York City following his service in Afghanistan. Madeline Brahm's son served in Afghanistan where he received enemy fire from the Taliban. But when he got back to the United States, he was killed by a gang of thugs in New York City, which then probably wasn't reported to the FBI. Alvin Bragg did not prosecute the case. You're not safe in Democrat-run cities. Move out, move to a red state, get to Texas or Florida. Those places seem to be safer. This was a very violent and tragic murder, which was a direct result of the mismanagement of crime by elected officials in this Democrat-run city. Yeah, and then here we have this about court corruption. Madeline Brown spoke out against the corruption of the Manhattan court system and about some of the people responsible for this brutal murder were not fully charged for their savage crimes. This case was just resolved this year, so this case drug on through the Manhattan criminal court system for 4.5 years. When Alvin Bragg came into office, he was handed a strong trial ready murder case and gang assault case against all four of these individuals, where his brutal savage homicide was captured on video. He was handed a strong trial-ready case, ready to go to trial. As soon as he took office, the case immediately began to unravel. He dismissed a completely, he gang assault and murder indictments against 2 of the defendants clearly on video participating in the brutal, savage slaughter of my son. There's a few grammatical errors there, but she was probably struggling through trying to give this speech, and we can't blame her for that. It's a very, very sad time, and she was crying.
Reform
So
Council.
we can
I'm
watch some of
also
this
a
for a
mother
second.
of a homicide victim. My son, Sergeant Hassan Korea, Afghanistan War retired veteran, was killed in Harlem in 2018. Hassan was kicked, punched, stomped, and stabbed 9 times by 4 individuals he did not know, nor had he done them any harm. All 4 of these individuals were apprehended and all 4 charged with first-degree gang assault and second-degree murder. This case just resolved this year. So this case drug on through the Manhattan criminal court system for 4.5 years. When Alvin Bragg came into office, he was handed a strong, trial-ready murder case and gang assault case.
All right, so that's the part we read already, but you might check that out. It's on the House Judiciary GOP X account, and we're probably going to end the video there now. But, it goes on, talks about the murder rates, so you can read the rest of the article on the jimjordanreport.substack.com.